Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to Daily Light, your daily pause to rest in the light of God's Word. Today, let's talk about what happens when we stay close to Jesus. We'll read Acts 4:13. Now, as they observed the confidence of Peter and John and understood that they were uneducated and untrained men, they were amazed and began to recognize them as having been with Jesus. There's one phrase in that verse that I absolutely love. They began to recognize them as having been with Jesus. Not because Peter and John were wearing something that identified them, not because they introduced themselves by listing their spiritual credentials, not because they told everyone how much time they spent praying. Something about them made it evident that they had been with Jesus. And that makes me wonder, can people tell that we've been with him? Not because we constantly talk about church, not because we post scriptures, not because we know all the Christian language, but because spending time with Jesus has actually changed the way we show up. Maybe we're becoming more patient. Maybe we're slower to judge. Maybe we're more compassionate. Maybe we're learning to forgive. Maybe we're becoming courageous enough to stand for what's right without becoming cruel toward people who disagree. The evidence of abiding isn't simply how much time we spend with Jesus. Eventually, it should be what that time produces in us because proximity changes people. Spend enough time around someone, and you'll often pick up their expressions, their mannerisms, maybe even the way they laugh. So imagine what happens when we continually remain close to Christ. Little by little, his heart begins shaping ours. His compassion challenges our indifference. His patience confronts our impatience. His humility exposes our pride. His love stretches our capacity to love people we might otherwise avoid. The goal isn't to convince everyone that we're Christians. The goal is to stay so close to Christ that his influence becomes increasingly difficult to miss. Instead of asking, do people know I'm a Christian? Ask yourself, what evidence of being with Jesus can people experience through me? Choose one characteristic of Christ you want to intentionally reflect today and practice it in your interactions. And if you're watching, drop footprint emojis in the comments if your desire is to stay close enough to Jesus that his influence shows up in the way you live. Friend, remember, even small steps in his light are still progress. Carry his light into your day, and I'll see you tomorrow for another day of daily light.